welcome. Hopefully you've had a gin and tonic or something along those lines.
Oh, that's Sean.
Is that where I'm standing? Excellent. So, welcome, everybody. Just to introduce myself, I'm a bit of an interloper here. My name is Ian Stirling. I'm one of the co-founders of Muckle Brig, the company behind this distillery. And we are very excited indeed to be hosting you here this evening. We've had a wonderful experience in the past working with Digital 6, and actually to have clever, intelligent people discussing fascinating things in this building is our dream. So thank you very much for coming here this evening. I'm just going to tell you a very quick bit about who we are and what we do before I hand over to your panelists this evening. So Muckle Brig, we are 10 years old almost in November, and we started this company ostensibly to build a whiskey distillery, but we realized that was going to take a very long time indeed. So along the way, we set up a gin distillery, which started about 10 minutes over there and has now emerged here. And this is where we produce Lind Lime gin, organic gin that's now distributed across 27 markets around the world. And, funnily enough, we weren't going to make a gin originally. We were just going to be focused on whiskey. But thank God we did, because it helped us raise the investment we needed to build the whiskey distillery. It gave investors a lot of faith. So the Port of Leith distillery is now open just down the road. The world's tallest distillery, which is a random accolade that we didn't seek to achieve, but we seem to randomly have got it. And there, of course, we're producing single malt whiskey, and there's tours and a bar, etc. And then there's a third sort of bit to the holy trinity of our company, which is the Leith Export Company, which is probably most relevant to what we do, what you guys are discussing this evening, the sort of e-commerce bit that sits in between Lind Lime and Port of Leith. And that's where we sort of sell our products, but we also created proprietary brands like our blended whiskies and champagne, like Artico says, etc. We should have given some of you that this evening, maybe on the way out. And that's where we have a lovely website designed by Digital 6 that you can see, and we're on a path to learning how to sort of use that to its fullest extent and navigate the choppy waters of e-commerce. We're on a very long journey to learn that, and I hope, my colleague Cara, who's disguised as a waitress this evening, actually runs that, and will be learning as much as she can from this evening. Anyway, I'm going to hand over to Marty. I hope you have a wonderful evening. I hope you have a very fascinating discussion. Lots of new ideas emerge from this evening, and over to Marty and your panel. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Ian. I would like to, for anyone that doesn't know me, I'm Marty. I'm the head of marketing at Digital 6. So I'd like to echo Ian's comments by welcoming you here and to the first of, we hope, quite a few of these new events, eCommerce Growth Collective. We want it to be that kind of collective vibe, as the name suggests, less about your kind of seminar style of learning, more about the just coming down and having some drinks and chat and, perhaps learning a few things along the way. I feel a bit disingenuous being sit up here on what we described as an expert panel when, there's you and we are all experts in our own little bit, in our own business, in our own way. And there's several of you out there who could definitely have been on this panel tonight for sure. So, we want to hear from you. We'll ask questions of you through the night. You can feel free to ask us questions throughout the night. We might not know the answer to all the questions. I'm hoping that we know the answer to some of them, and then it'll go well. But yes, it's definitely all about that community vibe. And sharing, and one thing that many of you did in advance was fill in the little question at the end of our Eventbrite ticket sign-up process, which asked you what challenges you were facing in your business right now. When we were putting the event together, we were kind of thinking, we wanted to do it under the banner of sort of growth in challenging times. So, the sorts of challenges that we were thinking about or had in mind at the time were like cost of living crisis, particularly in the UK, Brexit and export complexities, the cost of advertising and customer acquisition increasing, data tracking and attribution, and the challenges around privacy and everything like that. So, those were what we had in mind, and you guys, thankfully sort of towed the line and played a lot of that back to us in the little box at the end of the Eventbrite form. So, to read back a few of those, economic downturn affecting sales of premium goods, cost of living crisis, recession, Brexit hangover, customers mostly purchasing when items are on sale, most probably due to lower disposable income, weak market demand, international logistics for D2C sales, cost of advertising and reaching more people, issues with being able to advertise to relevant people due to data protection issues with platforms like Meta and Google, keeping up with tech and the changes, which I'm no doubt kind of ties into that whole data and privacy stuff, which is a constant moving feast. So you can see that, the stuff that you guys were telling us is totally aligned with what we had hoped we would hear from you, really, which is great news. I don't know if Prema is here in the end, but Prema from Snag Tights, hope she won't mind me saying this, had mentioned that the weather was her main challenge that she was facing tonight, and I was hoping to actually ask her about that, whether she was just pissed off about the rainy summer that we've been having, or whether it genuinely is a key factor in the sale of tights. It could well be, you never know. So we'll have to wonder about that for a bit longer. So anyway, in terms of like the solutions that we sort of foresaw talking about in regards to some of those challenges, we were looking at areas like export and international markets as a means to avoiding the more sort of severe downturn in the UK. Perhaps entering into sort of marketplaces like Amazon and eBay to kind of broaden out and reach new customers in a kind of resource efficient way. Working on conversion, converting more of the traffic you're already getting. So if cost per acquisition is going up, if it's becoming more expensive to acquire customers, then, working really hard to convert the ones that you're already got on your website is crucially important. By the same token, driving loyalty and repeat purchase from the customers that you've already got, another potential solution there. And working on your tracking and your attribution, all the data side of things, because that is just critical to the understanding of how well your website is performing, and where your sales are coming from, and all that stuff that we seek to know. So hopefully we'll try and touch on a few of those things as we're chatting tonight. That list by no means exhaustive, so if you've got things to add to it, please do. But hopefully we'll cover a few of those as we go along. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the panel to you. We've got Duncan Maclean, who's co-founder of Candle Shack, Tony Jackson, e-commerce manager from Celtic FC, and Alan Gormley, who is the CEO of Shopbox. So give them a warm welcome. A word goes out to the unfortunate John Bruce, who contracted COVID this week. I don't know why he bothered testing. I mean, who's testing anymore? Come on now. It makes me think he didn't want to come, which personally I'm offended by. But, hey, he's a good guy. We like him a lot, and he was going to come along and help us out. So we wish him well. And if he's watching this back later, thanks, John. Hope you're feeling better. I was going to start the chat then with Duncan. As I don't know if many of you know, but Candle Shack is a supplier of materials to the candle making industry. Sort of blurring the lines a little bit between sort of B2B and B2C. They have big B2B clients, but then also, lots of a large volume of sort of hobbyists that behave in a more B2C fashion. So in terms of like you guys out there, probably crossover with both B2B and B2C. Businesses. Founded in 2010, they've grown steadily since starting e-commerce in 2014 and reaching an initial peak turnover of 12 million in and around the pandemic. As with many other similar businesses in that kind of crafty space, they hit it hard after the pandemic in terms of like the contraction in the market, because not so many people were stuck at home doing crafty activities. So they've done a great job of overcoming those challenges in a really particularly challenging market. And as of 2023, now the biggest UK supplier, more than double the size of their nearest competitor. So, doing a great job. And when we were thinking about, growth in challenging times, that was exactly the reason I wanted them to come along and chat to us, because I think they've got some great things to say and a great story to tell in that regard. So, I will stop blethering now, thankfully. If anyone's got a gin, go and spare. I'm rather parched. Duncan, one of the key ways, obviously, that you guys have been able to buck this sort of downturn trend in your industry in particular is through internationalisation. So when did internationalisation become a focus for you, and how did you know the time was right to sort of make that step?
How close do I need? Is that okay? So we sold internationally prior to Brexit through our online stores. It was obviously much easier before Brexit because, as Marty said, we've got a real mix between consumers and what we would call micro businesses. So we call them B to small B. It's usually one person, sometimes 3 or 4 in a company. So for them, dealing with customs paperwork and stuff was alien, and it became a real friction. So I think it was something like 18 or 19% of our revenue prior to Brexit came from shipping from the UK into Europe. And by the time Brexit had done its stuff, within kind of a year of Brexit, we were seeing that start to drop down to sort of 14%, 13%. It was really starting to head towards single digits. And then obviously the pandemic came as well. So I think by about 2020, or late 2019 was it, I think, or 2020, we could see that European sales were about £2 million, and there was a real risk that it was going to fall away much lower than that. And beyond that, the UK market had grown amazingly, substantially during lockdown. We didn't see the same uplift in Europe, so we knew that friction that came from Brexit was going to cost us quite dearly. So, there's 2 things, I guess. One was, we started off with a customer base in Europe. We could see it dwindling, and then we generated an awful lot of revenue during COVID. Having been quite a small business going into the pandemic, sort of £3 or £4 million turnover, that shot up to £12 million, and we were kind of almost looking, where are we going to invest this? And when we looked at Europe initially, it was, this is a defensive measure. We need to protect the £2 million of revenue we've got. And then through the exercise of actually speaking to people in the Netherlands, speaking to Snag, I know Brie and Tom, you kind of see there's there's a huge opportunity here. This is not a defensive measure, this is an absolute offensive measure. And probably first mover advantage, because we'd kind of grown our business in the UK. We had lots of competitors in the UK that were starting to nip at our heels quite badly. And we're looking at Europe thinking there is no competitors there. Now, that's either because there's no market there, or it's because we're first mover. So that was on the back of COVID, we had some funding. We had some evidence in our data that customers were starting to walk away from us in Europe. And that's how we felt that was the right time.
Aye, for sure. I guess a key enabler of it for you has been opening a base in Holland. Quite a sort of significant step for any business to take, I suppose. And, why did you choose that route as opposed to some of the other options on the table logistically?
Probably an element of insanity, to be honest. I think we did it during lockdown. So we leased the premises, hired a manager, set up a bank account, and launched a Dutch business over Zoom. And the paperwork exercise did not substantiate that. It wasn't a good decision on paper, not least because we were still a small company going into that, and we didn't do all the research we should have around labour costs in particular, which I'll maybe come back to. But for us, we did a lot of stock transformation in our UK business, so we buy perfume in bulk, and don't distill it, that's what these guys do. We decant it down into smaller packs. We do the same with wax. So we transform a lot of stock from bulk into small packs. And initially we thought we'll do that in the Netherlands as well. We'll basically carbon copy the UK business and we'll put it in the Netherlands. And so 3PL was probably the other way we could have launched a business, and we could have maybe opened an office. We sell fairly regulated stuff in terms of perfume oils. So we do need to have a legal entity in Europe. So we couldn't just have the UK business selling through, a hub, a distribution, because that would cause all sorts of problems around regulatory. So yeah, 3PL was the other option, but we were quite experienced by this point at running fulfillment centres. We knew how to do it. We knew how to break the products down. So it felt like an actual choice, but it wasn't the only way. It could have been done differently. Yeah,
I think we'll talk a little bit more about different options there in a little while. But we've worked together for about 2 or 3 years now, and throughout that time and throughout this internationalisation process, there's been a sort of a phased approach, trying different technical setups in order to kind of achieve the desired effect. We've faced a number of challenges throughout that time. We've gone from sort of subdomains with automatic translation to expansion stores and top level domains and things like that. Do you want to kind of cover off some of the bigger challenges and how you guys have found overcoming them?
Yeah, I think one of the risks when you internationalize is you try to do it cheap, because you're almost trying to prove the concept before you jump in with both feet, and people always said to us, you need to have a go-to-market strategy, you need to understand the cost. We thought, well, it's simple, isn't it? You just create a new domain, auto-translate the website. And we kind of realized over time that particularly in Germany and France. So Germany became our runaway market. It grew at 900%. But that was because we localized the website, we employed translation specialists, we used an agency in Germany. So we invested quite heavily in that market, and that paid off, because I think when we initially launched, we literally skinned it, didn't we? We just had, it was almost an overlay on top of the store. It was the same products, same prices. All that changed was the language. And Germans and French people, much like we in the UK, shop very differently. France was an incredibly tough market for us because the French like buying from the French, and they're very precious about perfume, which is about a third of our product offering. So the Germans don't like a 10% extra. They want to know how many grams that is. So, you know, when you deal in different markets, the kind of one size fits all, just put a simple skin on it, it didn't work for us. And when we started to see a big return was when we actually made the investment. We've most recently we've recruited German language speaking people. They're in our business in the Netherlands. So that's probably the learning from us was, if you're going into particularly the European market, don't treat it as one market with a website. You have to, if you're serious about it, you have to invest quite significantly in each country.
Stefan, who's our SEO guy, and I were chatting about this the other day, looking at Candle Shack's growth organically in Germany just recently, and there's like phenomenal, like 500% year-on-year growth for non-brand terms in organic search, and one of the top terms is Kerzengläser. Apologies to any German people out there, my terrible pronunciation, but that is candle glasses, and for a while there with the automatic translation, it was Kerzenbrille, and Brille is glasses that we wear on your face. So for a while that was the automatic translation thing all over the website, and we were wondering why it performs better now. Well, it's because it's called the actual right thing now. So, you know, but that's the sort of thing which you don't spot unless you've got somebody who actually speaks German. So there are, while the automatic translation can get you so far, it has its definite limitations in terms of, you know, something that's workable. So,
and we tried a whole host, you know, so I think initially it was fully automatically translated. Then we tried to use agency to proofread it. But we got 4,500 SKUs, so that's, you know, and they're forever being updated. So it's quite a big investment to do it properly. But what we found is when you do it properly, the ROI is there. You do get the ROI very quickly.
So I think there's been big challenges, obviously, in your marketplace specifically. A lot of competitors there falling by the wayside. You know, you guys have managed to avoid that and kind of capitalise on some of that in the market. And something that has impressed me specifically about it is your kind of willingness to invest in like the service, the brand, the content, the sort of R&D to make sure that the products just perform really well. And it's like, you know, it's going that extra step, I suppose. So like, is that something that has been really conscious for a conscious decision for you? And do you think that's what really kind of gives you the edge?
Yeah, it's been a big gamble. I think we never wanted to be the cheapest. We always wanted to be the best. But like a lot of businesses, it can be quite difficult to differentiate because a black whiskey tumbler on a photograph on a website looks like every other black whiskey tumbler. Ours were made in Italy. We employed a quality manager. We employed a laboratory to develop recipes and formulations for candles. We invested in an academy to teach people. Because I think what we tried to do was, we're a custom intimate business. We want to kind of take the customer on a journey for years and be their sole supplier if we can. And when we speak to them, most of the customers have an issue with learning confidence. How do I do this? Legally, can I sell these? Are they tested? Are they compliant? So we invested heavily in that. And at times it was really difficult because you're in the board meetings and you're getting told, you know, what's this going on with this academy? You've launched it for 2 years now. It's only bringing in £1,000 a month. What's the point? Why don't you just get rid of the people, save the money? And so that was difficult, you know, because all of our competitors effectively dangle cherries, and it's, you know, 2 for 1, 5 for 7, free shipping, paying 3. But, you know, our customer profile is quite unusual in some respects because it's a business that these people are running. So, for example, a new customer will spend £160 a year with our business, for example. A returning customer who's been with us for more than 1 year will spend £750 on average in a year for us. So it's quite an unusual profile, and they might shop with us for a number of years. But what makes them stick with us is all of that support. So if we don't provide the recipes, the support, they come, they buy once, they're gone. And they go and shop with the cheapest. And so in some respects, the people who want 2 for 1s, that's not our customer, and we've been very, very clear on that. But it can be very difficult to resist the temptation to and it was when we first had the relationship, you guys were pretty good, but when we started with the German agency, the first question they asked was, what 2-for-1s have you got? What offers have you got? We said, we don't do that. We don't do discounting. Sell our USPs. And then their face kind of dropped because it's like, that's going to be really difficult to generate revenue, but it's about generating profit, right? So, but we take a very long-term view of that. It's lifetime value. And so at the moment, it's £750 a customer is what we aim for with these returning customers. And we think if we continue to help these people grow their businesses, we can get that up to £1,000 a customer. And then things like your customer acquisition cost, we take a different view on it because we're not buying a transaction. We're buying a customer that might stay with us for 2-3 years. But I'm also conscious we're extremely lucky because we're supporting a craft. And if you're a product business or if you're a cost leader or something, you have to take a different approach. But I guess if you're selling a service, like, although we sell products, we're actually selling a service. We are helping you to run a home fragrance business. But like if you're running a gin distillery, we would sell you the botanicals, we'll teach you how to make it, we'll sell you the equipment. It's not just we do botanicals cheaper than anyone else. So that's kind of how we've approached it.
For sure. No, definitely, I think it pays off. What's next for you guys in the coming months? Anything exciting on the horizon?
I had to write it down because it was not too much. I think
the list is so long.
No, the big one for us has always been, so we've got a marketing budget which includes the people we have in-house, the agencies that support us brilliantly most of the time, and what we spend with Meta and Google and all the rest of it. And there's forever a balance that what we found because we're still a small company, was as we evolved, we just kind of got into a rut. And it was, this is what we spend on paid ads, and we have these 4 people. And what we're actually going to focus on this year is taking a much deeper look at it and saying, should we reduce our ad spend, because it's also very difficult to measure, and invest more in things like a success platform, more in education? As I said, that's difficult to defend at board meetings and stuff sometimes because it's less tangible. They like to see a spreadsheet with a number and a CAC and all this kind of stuff. But I think we've got enough evidence now when you look at our competitor set and how sticky our customers are that investing in USPs and investing in a team of people that can deliver an exceptional service is better than putting an extra £250,000 into Meta ads, for example. So that's the big decision. And then, on the technology side, Marty's supporting us with some server-side tracking to try and help us with that. And then the big push for us is we're going to try and pull together all of our knowledge base, all of our video content, everything onto a kind of what we're calling a customer success platform, and putting a twist on a loyalty scheme where the higher a tier a customer is with us, the more access they get to the knowledge rather than discounts. So we try to add value in a different way.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I suppose I'll chuck it out to you guys. I mean, internationalisation not always on the table for a lot of you. I think added value and taking that approach perhaps is something that everybody could consider. But anyone have any questions or any thoughts on the stuff we're chatting about with Duncan here? Anything you'd like to know more about? Deathly silence. It's all right, guys. Oh, we have one. There's a...
Yeah, sorry, thanks.
That's all right.
Hi, Gillian Crawford from Lily Blanche. In terms of the sort of regulatory environment of Europe, I mean, it's a grim question, and I imagine it's a grim situation. But, it just strikes me, I mean, Brexit has been a complete disaster, of course, for small business, but Germany and France with new packaging rules and all the rest of it. I mean, how do you negotiate all of that? Is it really worth it? Does it work for you?
Yeah.
I know there's some European markets that you just wouldn't touch with a barge pole.
I think it's just choosing where to focus. That's been our learning from Europe, is that initially we just went in and just said, like, everyone just shop with us, that's fine. But what we found is when you focus on a market specifically, you can grow it quite quickly, particularly from a small seed, because I think it's still small. So across the whole of Europe, we'll only generate 4.5 million of revenue this year from the whole of the European Union, which is massive. And within Germany, it's still less than £1 million. But we're now at the point in Germany, for example, where the packaging regulations, the green punct and all this stuff is a thing. And the Germans are brilliant because what they do is they tell companies to report their competitors, which is brilliant strategy, right? So they don't even have to police it. And because we've got competitors in Germany who grew up there and know all the rules, we're having to learn really fast. But I think that comes back to a conscious decision to invest in fixed costs in the business around people in particular. So we've got an REHS manager, Tom, he's doing our B impact assessment, and he's doing all of the regulatory. So it's a full-time employee who does nothing other than deal with that stuff. And then Cheryl and ALS, we've got a team of 2 people plus 3 in the lab who deal with CLP regulation. So I think you can only compete internationally within our market if you put those costs into the business, because trying to kind of do it with favours, with Perfume House and stuff, it doesn't work. And at some point you have to, so there's a real cost to it for sure, but that cost exists for us also in the UK. But it is worse in Europe, 100%. Yeah. Before you get into VAT and all that stuff, B2B VAT, yeah, so.
Stuff of nightmares. Anyone else? Any more? No? Cool. Well, thank you very much, Duncan. That was awesome. I'm sure everyone will agree. Tony Jackson, e-commerce manager from Celtic. We've worked with you and Celtic for many years across a broad range of services. Celtic recently replatformed and loving their new situation. I know that that internationalisation is one of the top things on your list at the moment since replatforming. So obviously unlikely to go down the route of setting up a new offshore business, but what are the routes you've looked at, and what's in the lead so far, and why? I guess from that kind of logistical standpoint.
Yeah, I think we have a very different experience of international markets. Our fans are already there. They kind of sort of grew up with the club, so there's that little pockets of demand all around the world. One of the things that kind of surprised me the most joining the club is within the club are siloed in lots of different businesses. A football club's not just one team playing on a park, it's ticketing, it's tours, it's hospitality, it's e-commerce, it's retail, and all of these separate businesses are all competing for the same wallet. We're all competing for the same set of eyeballs. So when we think about internationalization, it's how are we selling shirts or product to all of these customers, but at the same time, how are we selling international tickets, or how are we selling product to these fans when they come over? But part of the internationalization surprises that we get is when we sign a player from Japan. And I'll give a good example. And we went through the pain together. So we signed a player from Japan in a transfer window in July. Nobody had any idea until I was sitting looking at Google Analytics one night, and I thought, what is going on? And then I went onto Twitter, and we had signed Kyogo, one of Angie's first signings, and our Japanese traffic just went through the roof, like just instantly. It was just vertical, and we thought, what are we going to do? We've got no translations, we've got no localized payment, we've got nothing. I don't even have preferential shipping routes. I've got absolutely zero. And at the time we were on Magento, which we won't talk about.
Made it an uphill battle.
Yeah, we won't talk about. But it was the very next conversation that we had commercially was how do we get a Japanese site? Because the marketing team, although they're kind of in the same situation where they don't know about player signings and player movements, they have an inkling as to what's coming down the pipeline. So they're making, small changes. So they'd hired a digital agency in Japan to help all of our PR, help all our social media. So that was already in place. But we were completely unprepared, totally on the back foot. And we went down the route of automatically translating the website, suddenly discovering that the word manager actually means car mechanic, boss. and your translations are instantly lost overnight. And there were many, many instances of that. So I feel your pain, Duncan, with
you think you're helping conversion, and you're actually making it worse.
And you're absolutely not. So we then had to go through all of the pain of getting all of that translated into Japanese, and you're having to trust those translations as well, because we're completely blind. I can look at a page in Japanese and know nothing, absolutely nothing. I might know a little bit about German. The Brillen made me laugh because I used to work in eyewear, and so I instantly knew what the issue there was. Yeah. And it's all of those little things that you don't expect. And then with the Japanese market as well, our product that we sell in the UK is not what Japanese fans want. So they didn't want to buy what we thought they wanted to buy, which is they don't want to buy shortbread tins with tartan on it. They want to buy cute Takemuchis and all the cute little Japanese things. So all of a sudden we produced a range of soft toys, and I think we sold almost every single one out to Japan.
Really?
Because it wouldn't sell in the UK, but it sells over there. So knowing your market, it was a huge learning curve for us, especially with Japan. We signed Korean players last year, and again, the conversation was, how do we get the route to getting a Korean site up and running? And I just had to put my hand, I think we were 9 months getting the Japanese site up and running on Magento, and it never really worked.
No.
Never worked. So we would pour money into our AdWords. The SEO wasn't there, hreflang, which...
There was some fundamental server issue that seemed to be preventing it from working.
It was Weglot. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Weglot would... So I don't know if anybody's used Weglot for translations, but Google couldn't tell where the request was coming from, because it would send the translation request to Texas, and it always thought it was coming from the US. So it would never know what was going on with AdWords. So it's a huge challenge, and it's little things that you don't realise. So when we signed our players from Korea, we just said, let's just leave it. We know we've got a project to re-platform onto a SaaS platform, and that instantly just changed and transformed the way that we kind of prepare for player signings and player movements, because now, as soon as I know if we sign a player from Argentina tonight, by tomorrow morning I'll have an Argentina site up and running, it'll be translated, I'll have content that I can target to that particular country, I'll have shipping options that I can get in place. It will be so much easier. So I don't know, whilst we don't want this to be a technology talk, the technology, it kind of plays a bit of a key, because if you don't have everything in place when you then need to react, it becomes super expensive. And
the advertising works so much better. Your shopping feeds being in a native language and all that. All kind of much more effective when you can get it and spin it up quickly. So, 100%. So I guess like football clubs are a different beast, they're not behaving like your average e-commerce business necessarily. Lots of things driven by on-pitch performance. The team does well, you do great. The team does not so well, you don't do great, So under the theme of, growth in challenging times, you're experiencing challenges at completely different times to what the rest of us are, and in many different ways. And, what does that theme mean to you, and kind of, where do you put your focus to try and overcome that kind of completely moving feast that it is?
Yeah, so with things like player signings, sentiment is one of the other biggest factors that we've got. We can see traffic changing in the middle of a game. So, depending on who we're playing or where we're playing, we'll see traffic rise and fall prior to kickoff, during halftime. Depending on what the result's going to be at full time, we'll see traffic. And we always have a phrase that we're only 3 bad results away from a crisis. And that people can, think, but it's not really like that. No, it really is like that. If the team is doing badly and there's bad sentiment, then the rest of the business will suffer, and that can be down from tours, hospitality, all of those tangible things that hang off that first team performance. So when they're doing really well, we all do really, really well. So I joined the club when Celtic were they were on for 10 in a row. And I thought, this is an absolute no-brainer for me. I can't lose. I'll be able to print a Celtic crest on anything, and it's going to sell. And then by the time I had joined the club, everything had gone south. And Neil Lennon had resigned. The league was lost. And it was a pretty grim time. It was also, I think, lockdown had started again.
Did you not bought a load of 10 in a row stuff as well?
All of that was planned, yeah. So it's interesting as well, a lot of businesses can kind of predict their stock and what they're going to be doing with product. Our kits that we launched, like we just launched the home kit there a couple of weeks ago, that's been 2 years in the planning. We already know what the kits are going to be like in 2 years' time. For 10 in a row, we needed to be prepared because it was going to be huge. And so all of those conversations with suppliers, all the samples, all of that product line, it just all then gets written off because there's nothing you can do. You're not going to sell it. So It all has to get skipped or burned. So on-field performance really does affect us, but then it can also just be things like, club performance, financial results, manager movements. When Ange left, there were a lot of broken hearts. But then, it's having a kind of sort of strong direction in the club, a good board, clear direction with what's happening with the club, and that helps. And it also helps with things like our partnerships as well for our product. I know you're going to ask me about our partnerships as well. So, having a strong partner within retail helps our growth. We took on the Addy contract just before I joined, about a year beforehand, coming away from the previous kit supplier, and that just accelerated all of retail because all of a sudden everything's new. Adidas are a fantastic brand to have. It's a great partnership for us, and it's a great partnership for them. It's customer acquisition for them. It's not lost on us why they partner with football clubs. And again, we've got a great partnership with JD, and that's part of our internationalization as well. We don't then have to, I'm not going to say we don't have to try as hard, but because JD supply our product internationally, it helps with our brand awareness, it helps with our product movement, it helps with all that stock, and it helps with maintaining that good relationship with Adidas. We're spending enough money. They're seeing the result with that partnership. But then on top of that, the growth doesn't come through big ticket signings or big ticket contracts with Adidas. It can come through really small licensing deals that we do, and we do a lot of licensing with small brands who will allow us to kind of sort of test product really quick. So we know that if we're speaking to a brand and they produce a particular product line, they've already got 5 other football clubs. The first question we ask them is what sells, because there's no point. They know the product that sells for Real Madrid or Manchester United. So there's no point in us trying to reinvent what they do, although we will test new product that's specific for ourselves. And sometimes it can be, like I say, the soft squashy toys, complete surprise to us, sold out to Japan.
Is it better than the one I always remember is the Celtic microwave?
Don't knock the Celtic microwave.
Many have we sold?
A lot. A lot. If unfortunately, I think Swan went out of business. So the microwave.
Sorry, guys. No Celtic microwaves. So put your phones away.
For your man cave, you can have a microwave, a kettle, a toaster, and a fridge, all of which I have in my office.
All to match your tattoo.
That's it, exactly. So that's part of it.
Yeah.
It's the man cave.
Yeah.
We need to have the product for the person that's looking to
understanding your customer, guys, and their man cave. I guess I want to talk to you about the ways in which other brands, because not everyone here is working for a football club, and this is all quite weird stuff to a lot of you, I'm sure. But what crossover is there, and what are some of the things that can take away? We've touched on partnerships and like the Gazelle, the Adidas shoe. They did a Celtic version of it. It went absolutely wild last year, the year before. Obviously that kind of thing. Having that partnership with Adidas is something that's quite lucky and things. So I wanted to kind of, you didn't always work in football clubs. No. What are the areas where you think things cross over, and what can these guys take away from kind of like the things that that work well for you at Celtic?
Well, I think when I arrived at Celtic, it was a complete culture shock. Like, I had no idea how chaotic working for a club or a football club actually is. And then in my previous role, everything was nice and predictable. I had a nice predictable sales curve throughout the year. I knew when we were going to be selling sunglasses. I knew when we were going to be selling glasses. I knew when our peak trading would be, and I knew, it was nice and kind of predictable. So when you go to Celtic and you inherit Magento, you inherit the kind of sort of learning curve that everyone's been going through. It's you just go right back to basics. We've spent a lot of money getting the customer on the website, get your imagery, absolutely amazing. We look at other sites and other retailers because fundamentally we might be a football club, but we're still just an e-commerce website. Yeah. We buy products and we sell it people check out, they get it. We have all that normal kind of sort of life cycle of the customer. Our lifetime value is absolutely enormous. As I think I was mentioning before, we have a young hoops club where parents will register their children before they're born, so that they can get them into that membership, they can get that kind of sort of in-store discount. Well, we just go back to basics. We have great photography. We improve all the time. We've started, doing our photo shoots and models. We don't try to be experts at things that we can't do. Like, we don't process our own images for the website. We send them out to another agency. They do all of that work for us. It makes bringing product to market a lot easier. We'll photograph it, send it to them. They do all the touch-up, nice and simple. Everything's got a nice, consistent look. So get the simple things right, and that's absolutely key. Because if you're not doing it, you're just kind of, it's a bit disingenuous. And we talk about, if your customer's walking through the door of your shop, how would you treat them? And that's the customer journey that we think about all the time. We try not to bombard them with pop-ups and offers and all the rest of it. Just let them find the product, let them get to checkout, and then once we've got you, then we'll start kind of sort of doing some of the cute stuff.
Thank you, Tony. That was fantastic, really useful stuff, and just always funny, interesting anecdotes when it comes to Celtic. Alan Gormley, CEO of Shopbox. For those of you who don't know, Shopbox is a AI-powered personalisation solution. Very platform agnostic, works with all your major e-commerce platforms. A really great solution. As a solution, Alan, it feels like you guys are focused on improving conversion rate, improving average order value by delivering a better user experience through improved personalisation. That obviously is naturally aligned to the topic that we talked about earlier on of trying to kind of do more with the customers that you've got on your website right now. So it's great, a great topic to be covering. And the people that are coming to you right now, do you feel that they are acutely feeling the effects of the sort of various challenges that we're seeing right now, and they're looking for increased personalisation as a way to kind of get back on top, or is it more like businesses that are generally doing well and looking for it to take them to the next level?
Yeah. I think realistically it's both. Like, I think we've heard it here, 3 matches and you're dead. You've got a problem. Retail, there is no future in retail. You have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. A ship goes sideways in the Suez Canal and we all suffer. Like, you can't predict anything. As an industry, we're probably more affected by markets than anyone else. Like, most industries are relatively predictable, but like, if you said to most of our customers even 12 months ago that they would be obsessed with the Google ad spend, they would have said, look, we're keeping an eye on it, but we're not obsessed with it. They're awake every night now because of it. We have people who are 40-50% higher ad spend to get worse quality people through the front door. So I think we're seeing it both. And I think one thing, so I'll contradict something. When we started the company about 4 years ago, everyone was obsessed by conversion, like to the point of a fault. Conversion is just a way of getting sales. It's just one lever for sales. And sometimes there's a lot of bad conversion. I think what we're seeing much more is it's rebalancing back to actually some core metrics and some leading metrics rather than, to me, conversion is a lagging metric. You do a load of things, conversion happens. Actually, what you want are leading metrics. Are you getting good people through? Are you growing your existing customer base? We're seeing an awful lot more people who are focused on margin and doing clever things with margin. So I'll give you a couple of examples of really funky ones I've seen recently that I think are really clever and a different way of thinking. We've one retailer. I've got to tell you 2 stories about the same retailer. I cannot tell you who they are, and they are not in the room. Because one of them is kind of dodgy, but I think it's a really good strategy. So discontinued product. Not every retailer is discontinued product, but sometimes your customers are looking for products because they bought something 10 years ago and they need to replace it and it's no longer there. Guess what the cheapest product to get clicks on Google is for? Things that don't sell anymore. So if you can do, I'm going to use the phrase bait and switch twice tonight. If you can do a bait and switch on discontinued product where you still advertise for it, but when they come in say, oh, by the way, it doesn't exist, move them on. It's a really cheap way to get really good traffic in who actually wants to buy, because the reason they put the product name is because they want to replace something. So it's not 100% of your traffic or 90%, but it's a really interesting way of thinking about how you're attracting customers. And the conversation came about when they said, we've been trying to figure out whether we should keep them on the catalogue or not. And 15 minutes later, the conversation went to, oh yeah, we're keeping these on the catalogue. This is actually really an interesting strategy to try out. So that to me, and they'd never have thought of that in a pure growth market. They only thought of that because they're coming under really severe pressure on the cost of ads. But the same company have another strategy, which is a much more long-term thing, where they're using the AI to figure out the features that are making people interested in a product, to switch them from expensive, low-margin brand into own brand with high margin. Because the brands are killing them. They're squeezing their margins so hard that they're making no money on what's being shipped. So they've gone out and they've sourced, not quite own brands, but they've sourced other brands that are still very high quality, but they're not as well known in the UK market. And they're just using it to try and push people towards those brands so that everybody tends to win. It's a bait and switch, and you can argue about the morality, but I would say they're getting hit so hard with the margins on one side. They have no choice but to try and figure out how they can make the best out of the stock they've got. So I think, and that's not for everyone, and it won't work for every brand, but I think just thinking a bit differently, there's a lot of that coming up in the companies we're talking to. And our part is always to look at it and say, can we use that to figure out who are the right customers to send to what? Because you can't send all your customers towards a cheaper brand. You're going to kill your business. You've got to be very selective in how you do it, and that's where the AI and stuff comes into that.
Yeah, definitely. So if you guys are not so much focused on necessarily just conversion rate overall, I guess the other side of it for me is, you're delivering a better experience, and the other lever, I suppose, is trying to make people come back, that retention piece. So, do you find that retention is much more of, I guess that it ties into the quality of the customer, doesn't it? Is retention a conversation that you're having with your clients? Is it something that you find that the platform drives by giving people a more personalised experience, they come back?
Yeah. Absolutely. How many of you have spoken to somebody about email marketing in the last week? I expected all hands to go up. Too many shy people. We supply gin. You can't have gin and be shy. A year ago was probably fewer, and a year before probably nobody was really overly concerned about it. I think email's taken off. Email's become the thing again, even though we've been talking about it for 30 years. It's become a thing again because we're obsessed by growing our customer base now because it's cost us so much to acquire them. We got a huge new customer base over COVID, and those people are remaining. Like we were talking earlier on about for some retailers, the dip after COVID didn't happen. It kept growing, and there's a real chance now to take advantage of the fact that we've put so much into building the service that we deliver for e-commerce has improved dramatically through COVID. There are options for everything to do with service, for the suppliers we're working with, for the way customers are working with us. It's time to take advantage of it. So, and just on the conversion, I don't think it's about conversion or not conversion. I think it's really, people have got a lot more sophisticated. They know that, we all know that we're buying some traffic, but we prefer to buy it at a better rate. People are much more obsessed by, can I get an extra product into the basket so that, AOV is a much bigger conversation, I think, than it was 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And email and growing customers. We're doing a lot we have this concept where we call it personal shopping space. And we're doing a lot of saying, Duncan, you mentioned loyalty. So loyalty for me, I've always felt, as retailers, we went out and we said, if you are a nice person, you buy loads of stuff off us and prove your loyalty, we'll give you something. I think it's kind of the opposite of what you should be doing in some ways. So we looked and said, actually, you should have a feeling as a customer that the retailer knows you. Because when you walk into a physical store, they remember you. And even if they don't remember your name, they often remember vaguely what you were looking at. If they don't, they look quite intelligently at you and they look at what you look like and you have a kid with you. Well, you might want a small jersey as well as an adult's jersey, okay? So I think the obsession with growing customers and retention is around that idea of we got to understand customers to do it. It's not just about blasting them. So sorry, kind of gone all over the houses there, but I think it's an obsession and it has to become an obsession because there's 60 million people in the country. Unless everybody has a baby tomorrow, our audience is not going to grow in the country. We've got to be better within the customer base we have for most of us.
Definitely. And I guess, this tonight's all about, growth in challenging times, and a lot of people are under pressure right now. How's life as a solution provider, going in and trying to sell your product to businesses like those that are here tonight? Do you feel that people are squeezing you quite hard, looking for, a lot up front in terms of proof for, how well the solution works, more so than before? People really want to make sure, quite rightly, I suppose, that their hard-earned dollar goes as far as possible?
Yeah, people are obsessed with value right now, which is fine, because when we started the company, one of the things we used to talk a lot about was barriers. And most of us here have been through cycles where we've bought technology or anything else, and you kind of feel like you're tied in. You feel like there are people whose marriages last for less time than their supplier relationships. So we kind of look at when we need to take barriers out for retailers. Now, the really good thing right now is with SaaS technology, it's so easy to try something and decide you don't like it. It really is. I've had conversations with retailers who have said, we've been talking for this so long. The cost of you doing this is so little. You're thinking in a very old way.
Yep.
You're thinking about this as a major capital investment. You can switch this on in 3 months' time, you can switch it off.
Yep.
And that conversation, I think, is people are amenable to it now because they've got used to being able to do that a lot more. But I think it's the right way to do it. At the end of the day, for most of us, we got to try it before we know if it works for us. And I'll say something that most vendors won't say. Some of our stuff will not work for you. Every retailer is slightly different. The way the brand is presented, the way the customers think about the brand, how much share of wallet you can actually get. Sometimes you have loads of products, but actually most of your customers just think of you in one category. And unless you make some fundamental changes, it's not going to change radically. So there's only so many, so there's levers you can pull. So you want to be in a position with any technology vendor to be able to switch stuff on and switch it off fast. And just and suck it and see much more than make major commitments and then be stuck in a relationship that is probably not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But we're definitely, people are definitely, I think, moving that direction very, very quickly because most of us are now in the second or third generation of SaaS technologies we've worked with, so we know it's no longer a big commitment. And the guys turning up, rolling up the sleeves, and 3 months later you're wondering what they all do.
Yeah.
We've moved beyond that.
From staying on the theme of kind of proving value, then we've talked already about the challenges around data, and the volume and quality of data that you can track, and how well it is to tell whether, how people are interacting on your website, where they came from, how well a specific tool or solution is working. So is that something you guys are really facing right now? Is, because they obviously pay for the product to do a thing for them, and you need to evidence that thing is happening. So, and that must be tricky with the current situation.
Not really. So what's tricky is that most people's view of data is completely wrong. It's that simple. Okay, so Tony has the most important piece of information that any of you can have. He knows before the baby is born that it's going to be born. It's that simple. Do you remember Leahy, who was the CEO of Tesco when they set up the club card? And he said that if I know somebody has bought nappies 3 weeks in a row, I can market to them for 18 years. Makes sense, doesn't it? And you know why he thought it was 3 weeks? It's really good. Because nobody can stand somebody else's baby for longer than 2 weeks. So it has to be your baby. Okay? But he made a very good point. If you look at his point, Tesco Club Card collected huge amounts of information about all of us, where we live, the car, the da. And what did he talk about? 3 pieces of behavioral data. He doesn't need to know you at all to know you have a baby. So when we started, one of the things, I've always been obsessed by this because I used to spend a lot of time in financial services, and people would say, well, we know the income of all our customers. And I go, well, first of all, I can tell you don't. And second of all, I can tell you it's 99% incorrect. Because the only reason they gave you that information, first of all, it's out of date. And second of all, they gave it to get something off you. So they lied, unless they legally couldn't. And most of their data is wrong. Behavior data tells you everything you need to know, because that tells you what customers actually want, what they're interested in. It tells you about the stuff that they won't tell their friends they want, but they do actually want. You know, some of us buy high-fat stuff as well as low-fat stuff, yada, yada. So we started the company from the point of view of listen to the customer, don't steal data, it's first-party data, you don't need to know where they live and their email address to know that this person is interested in the following things. And that opens up a world of possibilities for you, because suddenly you can service a customer as a human being. You can take account of the fact that you're not making assumptions about them, because there are people out there who buy products that we as marketers don't think go together. If they want to buy them, let them buy them. Okay, so we've always looked at it, first-party data, don't touch personal information under any circumstances unless you absolutely have to. And also you shouldn't ask customers for information unless you're going to use it intelligently. That's the other thing that I think we all do surveys. You're looking at the survey going, nobody's going to use this information. Why are they asking me? They're wasting my time and most of this information is wrong. So keep it very, very simple when you want information.
For sure. Oh, it's a good way to approach it. Thank you very much, Alan. I forgot to go out after Tony and come to you guys. Faux pas. Forgetting the key collective thing here. Numpty. Anyway, does anyone have any questions either for Alan or Tony or any of the things that we've covered? There's a wee microphone coming your way.
Hi, this is a question for Alan. So you were just describing there about surveys that probably all small businesses have done, and then you don't do very much with the data afterwards and not sure how to actually turn a campaign. So have you got any good examples of something that you think that small businesses or even big businesses have done recently that have been crafty that's then resulted in better retention?
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's a company, actually, we do a lot of collaborations with other technology companies. One thing when we set up the company that I didn't really think we'd get very into is we get to know a lot of people, and we're sharing an awful lot because there's a lot of really cool tech out there. And there's one company we work with, I will mention them, we'll be doing an event with them hopefully soon, Octane AI. They do really simple surveys, but it's 1 or 2 questions. So they keep it right down to the minimum, and they make it about the thing that's of interest to you while you're buying. So instead of them saying, when's your next birthday, they're quite big on makeup sites. So they'll say, what's the typical color you use for lipstick? That's it. That's the question. They're done. They don't ask any more information, but now they have one piece of information that's really useful to you as a retailer, really useful to you as a customer, and you don't feel like you're being given the third. So Octane AI. I'm advertising, right? You should buy Shopbox AI. Then we'll sell you Octane AI. But I think we like them because I think they keep everything very, very simple. So it's yeah.
We'll hit them up for some retrospective sponsorship.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyone else? Any other questions coming in from you guys? Or any points, anything you'd like to talk about, having known what we've talked about so far? There, Sarah.
So just on the whole AI thing, and I think everyone's sort of, interested and looking at where it's going to be used well. Couple of questions. One is, which website do you think is using AI just now really well, and that you look at and you think, wow, that's a really good use of AI? And 2, what do you think is coming down the line at us? What do you think we'll all be talking about next year when we're back here?
Okay, I'm not going to predict anything because that would get me into serious trouble. I'm going to tell you the company I find most interesting, and this is going to sound boring, but I want to throw out a couple of reasons I find it interesting. Probably the best AI company I've seen that's consistently is Netflix. Okay, they've been doing AI deeply for about 15 years now. And the reason I love Netflix is 2 questions I have to the audience. How many of you go to Netflix and go straight to the search bar? That's weird. There's always one person, there's always one weirdo who puts their hand up. Thank you for being the weirdo. It's relatively unusual because Netflix are not a way of you finding a movie. They curate content for you, and they always have. So they've always figured, we need to figure out what's interesting to this person, not we need to have loads of stuff and hope they can find it. Okay, so that's the first reason I found them really interesting. This was 2 or 3 years before we set up Shopbox, I started to look at them really closely. The second thing that I love about Netflix is, how many of you type in the name of a movie in Google and then click on the link in Netflix? Nobody. There's never anybody puts their hand up for that. You go to Netflix and then you eventually find a movie. Okay. Now, Netflix made a choice. Remember, when they started streaming, Google owned the internet. Okay, everybody's typed everything to Google. So any other company would have said, we're going to supply 1 million movies and you're going to search them and we're going to show you the movie. And that's our job. Netflix said, no way. That gives you an hour of somebody's viewing time each night. We want 4 hours. So we're going to force Google to send their traffic to us and we're going to be the experience, not Google. And I think that's really clever. And they needed AI to do it. They couldn't have done it if they just did a very standard search engine. But they turned the whole thing on its head. One thing I'm really excited by, I just got on the beta program. Do any of you use Superhuman? Okay, we have one hand. Not weirdo, because he uses Superhuman. It's a fantastic piece of kit for email. They just launched a beta, for email, where you can now type something in and use AI to find the answer in your email. So you can type in things like, where's the event in Edinburgh? And it'll go, bim, 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 bim. This email from Marty says, this is the address. You know, you spend like 2 or 3 hours a day going through email, just trying to find the email that had the piece of information that you need. They're trying to turn it on its head. So what I think AI is just, it's not that it's overly exciting, it's just it's creeping in all over the place, where it's helping us do things that are just frustrating and annoying all the time. So I got very excited when I saw Superhuman. And then I'm going to leave you one thing you should download, Arc Search. Download it to your, I don't know if it's available on Android yet, but it's on iPhone. ARC Search. Instead of you searching in Google and it giving you results on a website, it goes and it trawls the internet for you and builds a page for you with the answer for the question you put in. That sounds like surely other stuff does it. Trust me, try it. And send me an email tomorrow and tell me how much you love it. ARC Search, try it. It's a really cool piece of kit.
Thank you very much, guys. I have just realised the time and the fact that we've still got 2 more cocktails to drink and loads of canapes to eat. So, if it's okay with you, I think we're going to wrap it on the head. I want to say a massive thank you to the panel here, so a bit of a round of applause for those guys. Thank you again to the sponsors, to BigCommerce and to Shopbox AI, and of course us at Digital 6. Thanks you guys for coming, thanks for your questions, thanks for listening. Please go and eat and enjoy the delicious canapes. Please have the 2 other cocktails, even more. Have extra for the people that didn't turn up. Please do. You've got about 40 minutes to do it all, so start sinking. And then go and bottle yourself your own little bottle of gin over there in the corner as well. So take one of those away with you as well. Please do, and thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate it.